Hello, Denise. Hello,
Hello.
Priscilla. How
Hello.
you guys doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. How about you, Priscilla? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Bit busy, but I'm doing good.
I gotcha. Yes, it feels like a busy time of the year. Well, my friends, welcome to Trauma Survivors Walking Each Other Home. And many of you will that phrase will reverberate with you because Ram Dass said years ago, we're all just walking each other home. And trauma survivors in particular, when the environment around us gets very threatening, unsafe. We especially need to walk each other home. So, this program is about the three of us from different backgrounds, different expertise, different experience, different age groups. We are helping each other look at, feel about, and find ways to authentically accept the trauma that we experienced, and at the same time, instead of denying it, say, how can we help walk each other home in the midst of this? And today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to do a reading, and the three of us will listen to it and see how we respond. I think there'll be a lot of responses, and also people listening. I'm doing this for you as well. But first, I want to just say I'm Holly Elissa Bruno. I'm a recovering attorney. I'm 79. I've been a trauma survivor for all my life because the trauma began before birth. And I write books about law and leadership and emotional intelligence. My latest book is called Happiness is Running Through the Streets to Find You, Translating Trauma's Harsh Legacy into Healing. My latest article is called Look to the Skies, Look for Your Hidden Stars when Making Impossible Decisions. That one just came out last week. So I'm just going to ask Denise and then Priscilla to just say something about yourself so people can know something about you that would help them get to know you.
Hello, I'm Denise Rokicki. I live in Ohio, and I was a Head Start. I'm a retired Head Start teacher for over 30 years, and now I do a music and movement program around town, and I'm a trauma survivor with putting effort to healing.
Yay.
Thank
Um,
you, sweetie.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys both for here and for allowing me to be in this space. I am Priscilla Rodriguez. I am the author of the journal Trauma. What is it? Trauma Emotional Bonds, Healing from Trauma Emotional Bonds. I'm bilingual, so I flip-flop between Spanish and English, and I'm also a trauma therapist. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
And your business is, if people wanted to access your business, how would they do that, Priscilla?
Yes, thank you, Holly. I am the founder of Family Consulting and Coaching. We specialize on family and also provide consultation, trauma informed conferences, and yeah.
So they would just look up your name and look in Massachusetts and find you.
Yeah, they could actually look at me in Google. Just put my name, Priscilla Rodriguez. They'll find me on Google. But in the social media is at Family Consulting and Coaching.
Awesome. Really great. Okay, my friends. So I'm going to read something from a book that is no longer in print. It is a book written by a trauma survivor who we all self-medicate in some way or another. And then I'll speak for myself. I self-medicated with achievement, with accomplishment, with staying busy, keeping busy, with love affairs, with taking care of other people. And in the end, I was running away from myself. And so before we get into this guy who self-medicated with alcohol, which many people do, many people who have trauma use substances like alcohol and drugs, or they use processes like I did, like achievement and keeping busy, work addiction. So he used alcohol. And I just, if you guys want to self-identify, self-medication means, what would you say it means to you, Denise? And what have you used to help yourself self-medicate the pain of trauma? If you're willing to
Well,
say.
well, I've been a smoker since I was like 13 years old. So that's a drug that you can, that's an addiction. And I was a workaholic also. So now
What
I'm
is the
not.
addiction? I'm happy for both of us. Tell me this, what does the addiction to nicotine, how does that seem to help you self-medicate against trauma?
Well, I'm off of cigarettes right now, for
Yay!
about a
Woo!
week, but
All
I go
right.
on and off. And well, the thing about nicotine is when you take it, if you want to relax or if you want to calm down, like if I get triggered and excited or panicky, I could light a cigarette and calm down. If I am dragging and I need a break and I want to get a boost, I can go either way. That's the thing about
Mhm.
nicotine. It's like an intuitive drug.
It knows what you need.
It knows what you want and it gives it to you. So it is really hard. I've quit a million times, but right now I am off and I'm happy that I'm off.
Good for you. What's helping you, sweetie?
I asked my guardian angels to stop me from buying cigarettes ever. So if I don't buy if I buy a pack of cigarettes, I have to smoke the whole thing. So the goal is to not buy any.
Wow.
And I asked my guardian angels to speak to me directly when I'm trying to buy some and say no.
Do you have names for your guardian angels? And if so, are you willing to share them?
I don't have names for them. Right. I do. My first guardian angel, I met it when I was 4, when my father died. She came to the window to comfort me and took me flying over the trees and stuff. And she's been with me my whole life. Right now, I'm trying to pursue a relationship with other spirit guides that are involved on my spirit team. And they're the ones that I asked about to help me not buy cigarettes.
I love it. So there's another topic for us to talk about is who are our guides? Whether you believe in spiritual guides or not, many trauma survivors have guiding spirits, maybe their ancestors. So that's another thing for another program if you are both interested. But I want to ask Priscilla, if you're willing to, it's totally by choice, how have you self-medicated against the pain and panic of trauma? And we'll talk about that.
Yeah, staying busy. Staying busy, like you said, Holly. I had no choice. I had children. So, but when we think about self-medicated, I also want to say it's anything that you do to soothe that adversity and those experiences that you have to face, but you don't want to. So I've known what is to work up to 3 jobs and pick up my kids at 11 o'clock at night and go back, drop them off at 5:30 to be back at work at 6. And cry myself to sleep because I really wanted to be a mom, but I also needed to work. So yeah, that's how I kind of like self-medicated myself. And honestly, now I practice meditation. And when I'm having so like right when we're self-medicated is to control those big feelings we sometimes experience. So when they are depending on the level of the feelings is depending of the meditation that I need. I sometimes just need to go walk, get out.
So what you're identifying, both of you, is that there are some ways to self-medicate that are healthy, and there's some that are unhealthy. So for me, overwork, yes, it allowed me to support my children. Yes, it allowed me to have dignity in a certain way. But I worked, and I was a graduate student, I worked 4 jobs. I just worked. And the negative thing about that was that I just had big feelings. I had scary feelings. I had panic that I wanted to avoid. And when I was focused on my work, I didn't have to think about that. It always came back to me. I was working on my PhD, and the graduate school where I was, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, had the graduate library underground. And I would go down there to work and get panic attacks because the air was not good down there. And that reminded me, and there were no windows, it was very cave-like. And that reminded me of, sadly, the sexual abuse that I had experienced, and I couldn't bear not being able to breathe. That's always been a trigger for me. It's a trigger for most people, but because of the sexual abuse that had to do with my upper body, particularly my mouth, I just couldn't bear it. So I finished up a master's and left. That's how I self-medicated for a while, working hard, doing well. And then it caught up with me, and I knew I had to face something deeper. So you do meditation, I do meditation and emotional freedom technique, tapping. Denise, just said you go outdoors. What's one other thing that really helps you self-medicate in a healthy way?
Yeah, I do meditation also, and self-care rituals like baths, and I do spiritual rituals monthly, like new moon, full moon rituals, and yeah.
Right on. So folk that are listening, we want to ask you too, what are the self-medication ways that have helped you and are healthy for you? And what are the ways that were not healthy? And how did you ever recover from them? Denise, what sparked you to recover from smoking? Because that's been a long-term one.
Well, this time it was because I coughed up blood.
Oh, sweetheart.
So, and well, I asked that before I went to sleep, I said, please help me to not buy cigarettes. Give me something that is going to really help me understand that concept. And then in the morning, I coughed up blood and I go, okay, that's a good one.
Oh, girl.
It only happened once, one day. It's not happened again, but it was scary enough to not buy cigarettes that day.
Wow. Are you going to see a doc? Or is that?
It's healing. Everything is healing. There's no more blood.
Okay. Do you know what? I'm not going to push because it's your choice totally, but whatever it was that was bleeding, is that something that might happen again?
It was, I think, sinus related as well. And it was just a scary enough reminder that, smoking really does damage your body.
Well, you've taken an important step, and congratulations on your first week. Yeah. Priscilla, how about you? What helped you say enough? I'm not going to do that anymore. Because you were in a bind like I was. You had to.
So honestly, my wake up call was maybe, believe it or not, maybe like 3-4 years ago. Or maybe more, maybe about 6 years ago. It's me understanding it was my daughter was going through something. She was actually the what inspired me to write the book about emotional bond. And I realized that I was always seeking for something for them, to model something for them, but at the same time I was losing myself, and I was losing my relationship with my husband was failing. Then I had little kids who I was not being in tune with because it was just my work. And then every time I had a breath, it was my daughter who was going through something that I wanted to save. So during that time, I started experiencing panic attacks. I started feeling guilt and grateful. I'm grateful for my therapist and my psychiatrist who were like, you're going to experience this. And then like when family members like my brother or including my mom will say they will come to visit, I will have anxiety about it. And my mom, it was more like because of other things. Not, I love my mom to come over and cook and cook some of her delicious food, but there was things about it like I didn't want to hear her to tell me how I need to keep my house clean. Or so I realized that yeah, I needed to take a step back and focus on my own healing and be okay with not working and just enjoy me and not studying or not looking at psychological YouTubes or follow people. It was just okay to just stop and not do none of that.
Girl, I hear you. And anytime you want to switch to Spanish, it's fine. I hear you. And Janice and I've experienced that too, about just enough. In Italian, it's basta, basta, basta. Enough. Enough is enough of just no. I don't want to experience a panic attack anymore. And I don't want to stop it just by medication. I want to stop it by facing the part of me that's scared to death the trauma will return. So, my friends, great introduction. Thank you both for talking about self-medication. I'm going to share this man, because he's a recovering alcoholic, doesn't share his last name. He was a stockbroker in New York City, and he just calls himself Tony A. He also does not want to be known. Isn't that interesting? Some of us trauma survivors want to be anonymously doing the work of recovery, and that was him. So let me read to you something that he said. His book is called, I hope we can see this. It's hard, isn't it? It is called, never mind, The Laundry List, because he was working with a group of trauma survivors, mostly young people. And they said to him, we need something in writing, Tony. We need something to go by. Just like Priscilla, you wrote your book on trauma bonding to help people. And that's what he did. He wrote this book. And the laundry list, what he did was he said he felt he received the information. What he received was 14 traits of trauma survivors, one of which is being afraid of people, especially authority figures, and many more that I put in my book. But when he read this list to the young people, who were all trauma survivors because they were adult children of alcoholics, they said, that's my laundry list. That's my list of traits as well. So at some point, we might want to talk about those traits. But here's what Tony A. said after a lot of years of recovery from self-medication with alcohol, with relationships. And he finally said this. He said, then I'm going to invite everybody listening, and Priscilla and Denise, when you hear this from your heart, from your soul, from your spirit, from your mind, what is it that's most important to you, and what speaks a truth of trauma and trauma survivors walking each other home for you? It's just 2 paragraphs. So it's called Our Personal Rage and Sorrow. 2 very powerful emotions buffet the trauma survivor about: an emerging rage at one's parents and a deep aching sorrow over a lost childhood. The family environment and the alcohol, everything that went with it, robs all trauma surviving children of a healthy, spontaneous, and nurturing childhood. Our youthful joys were always being trampled by the family illness. For most of us, one of the truly damaging aspects of being raised in a traumatized household was our treatment as a non-person. Part of this process of being robbed of any individuality as a human being was the need to stuff feelings of anger and resistance. In my family, there was only one person who could directly express anger and rage. Guess who that was? It's his father. His father. The rest of us had to suppress our anger at how we were treated. We were not valued, and this was never more evident than in the way our feelings and needs were so conveniently ignored. Year after year, I was forced to stuff my feelings until somewhere deep inside of me, I developed this molten ball of rage at all the times I had been invalidated and abused. I think that this core of rage is within all trauma survivors, all abused children, Many traumatized children have shared how our rage became strangled by our loyalty to our parents or to our family. How could our families be wrong? How could our parents be wrong? Parents were to be respected, not because of what they did and how they treated us, but just because they were our parents. Therefore, we must be mistaken in our perceptions of them. Always, it seems, we were the ones who were wrong, inappropriate, stupid, and foolish. Just how the ball of rage was created varies from person to person. For just about every one of us, it's there, and we need to deal with it in our recovery. That was written, I think, in 1978, maybe 1981. So as you were listening, people that are with us, not on screen, what touched you? What did you hear? What called out to you? And Priscilla or Denise, what called you as you were listening to that trauma survivor's experience?
Go ahead, Priscilla.
It's us being the how do I have it in my us being los causantes, the of the issues, right? Us being the people who created the issues and feeling like at one point that we were broken when we saw people having a normal, what normal was, ours was broken because of me. It was my fault.
So self-blame and looking at the victim as the cause. Yeah, that's part of it. And Denise, what spoke to you?
I did not have that self-blame. Like that, the first thing I learned about trauma recovery or
Mhm.
abuse recovery or getting away from them was that I didn't do it. It was not my fault. I did not, I was the child, he was the adult, and I did not do anything wrong. That was really the first understanding that I got in my healing.
So that was adult understanding?
Yeah, I understood. I mean, it was when I moved away from the family and I just understood. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything wrong. I was a kid.
For me, it was more like I felt like I was broken because I was a rebellious person. And because of my behaviors, my family turned their back on me. Because of my behaviors, um, everything that I went through, I deserved. So as an adult, I learned that no, I didn't deserve nada. And I was not a rebellious. I was and a couple of years ago, right after my master's degree graduation, and this is why for me trauma is so important, and even like speaking about the intergenerational behaviors, because the thing is that we don't realize, even people that go to school for mental health don't really understand the roots that influence in our behaviors. And sometimes we go to school and if we don't study it, you really don't understand it. And I want to say, if you don't experience it, you may not ever understand. Because not into an adult, I was like, wait, I wasn't broken. I was not a rebellious child.
Rebellious is not bad. Rebellious is how things are continue to evolve. But you
But
saw it as bad. You
because
thought that
I
was
was
the
rebellious, because I was rebellious, I was not worthy of a lot of things. I was not worthy to be invited on my family's get together. I was not worthy to go visit my father. I remember I had a neighbor who he knew, and I had to tell her, no, that's like he wouldn't go visit me because he didn't want that connection. And it was because I was rebellious. And now I'm like, not, and even now when I'm working with adolescents, I say it's not, they're not rebellious. They're advocating. This
right,
is their way of advocacy. They
right.
haven't learned how to express it. And adults need to understand what is happening in the child's life. So I learned that not so long ago that no, I wasn't broken. It wasn't, but I was always aware. And that awareness, but because in my culture, it was considered disrespectful, defiant. I was oppositional. I probably if they was to assess me, I probably met all the defiant symptoms. And in reality is I was being parentified to my sisters. I had to clean. I had to be understanding that I couldn't do sports after school. I needed to understand why we couldn't go to a birthday party with my friends. So, yeah.
And one of the things you said last week that's underlining what you're saying right now is you said, when you work with families, when you work with parents, you say to them, just take time to be with your child, see your child, hear your child, listen to your child. And a lot of children who are rebelling are doing that because they're not being heard, they're not being seen, they're not being listened to. And children with ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, do that because they're usually in pain. They're crying out for someone to see them. I believe, I believe, and I wrote this in my book about trauma, about happiness running through the streets to find us. I believe that a natural and sad consequence of being a young child trauma survivor is that we blame ourselves. It comes naturally to blame ourselves because it doesn't seem possible to blame these people that are supposed to love us, these people that are supposed to be responsible for us. And in many of our cultures, like you said, Priscilla, we have to have respect. And so it would be disrespectful to say to them, stop this, don't do that. So we blame ourselves for two reasons. One, it's not allowed to feel bad about the people that are hurting us, or to think that they would hurt us even. So denial is easier. And the second thing is, everybody needs to have a sense of some kind of power in our lives. And I, as a small child, learned, as I think many trauma survivors do, if I beat myself up and blamed myself for being a bad kid, then maybe my father would not have such reason to abuse me.
Or you will accept, I'm sorry, but
No,
if you
go.
blame yourself also, you will accept the conditions that you're living on to
Have
create
no
it,
choice.
now you're conditioned to yourself to live poor because you decided not to go to school because you wanted to be a parent, or like because you decide this, you choose this. It's like you tell your brain that it is your fault and it's okay, and now it's okay to live like this.
And it's okay. The sad thing is, I can beat myself up. That's acceptable for trauma survivors. We are really the experts at self abuse.
Can I
So,
share? Can I
yeah.
share something? And I know Denise wants to say something too, but I want to say, and we often use a vocabulary, especially like in the Latino culture, when we're trying to
Talk
parent
about that.
children,
Yeah.
we'll say things like, I don't want them to go through what I went through.
Right.
I'm doing this because I want to protect you, because I want you to do what I couldn't do. So here we are now projecting to our children, and we could become overprotective to the point that we're doing the same thing just differently and damaging some of the things we're doing.
Denise, yeah, what were you thinking, girl?
What I was thinking is, because I was abused by four different neighbor men, before my stepfather molested me. So I never really, I didn't really have a bond with them, the abusers. So I don't know, it's weird. I did feel like I was a marked, like abuse me was like brought across my forehead or something. But then once I moved away, I realized that, I came to the reflection of this is not, I was a child, he was an adult. Each one of those. The one the first time I was abused, it was a boy, not a man, but probably like a teenager. So I guess I did, blame myself or feel like it was something about me that attracted this kind of attention, right?
I hear you. And what I feel is true for me and for many trauma survivors is that the initial abandonment that we face as children, the initial loss of having parents that can care for us and love us is something that I have repeated over and over again as I have looked for love in all the wrong places. So because I didn't get love, because I didn't get caring, because I didn't get guidance, I looked for that elsewhere. It was a natural thing to do. And I didn't know what healthy parenting was like. So yeah, I saw a few people that were healthy and I fell in love with them immediately, like my gym teachers, who I asked immediately, would you take me home? I'd like you to be my parents. There's that. But also what I found myself attracted to, and this is still a possibility for me, I find myself attracted neurologically to the people that are not good for me. That's getting much better. But that is something that's going on with me. I do want to also respond that my response to Tonier's many trauma survivors are not allowed to talk about rage and sorrow. In my family, the only people that could rage were my father because he was a rageaholic and was allowed to be out of control that way, and it usually led to violence. My mother was mentally ill, and when she was psychotic and in her madness, literally, madness and rage went together. So when she went insane, went mad, she could yell and scream. So two troubled adults were the only ones that could yell and scream. So rage was off. I was not allowed to have rage, and I felt it. And much of my recovery as a trauma survivor is to allow myself to feel the rage, feel it in my body, and learn to translate it into something healing. And that's a whole other program. But the other thing I want to say is Tony doesn't just talk about rage. He says he's going to talk about sorrow. Rage and sorrow are the two feelings that trauma surviving children cannot escape. He barely says anything about sorrow. I think for some people, the sadness, and Bessel van der Kolk says this too. Bessel van der Kolk says two things in his Body Keeps the Score about what we're talking about. He says, yes, the natural tendency for traumatized children is to blame ourselves. It's what we do. It's the only choice we seem to have. And the other thing that he says is, and we've talked about this, if I allow myself as a trauma survivor to feel the sorrow, it will wash me away and I'll become totally lost to it. So both of those are true for me. A lot of my recovery has been facing the rage inside of me and the sorrow inside of me. And Fred Rogers, I'll end with this. Fred Rogers summed it up. What do I do with the mad that I have? What do I do with the sad that I have? And 80% of trauma survivors, according to van der Kolk, go to their graves carrying sorrow and rage. How about you guys? How about the rage?
Well, for me, I do not find rage within myself. I don't find it. And it's, suppressed or whatever. But because my sister was the one that had the rage, that expressed the rage, and it was very inconvenient for our family. And it, like every holiday, there was rage out of my sister. And
How did that manifest to you as a sibling? What did that come across like?
I mean, she would hold her breath and pass out. She would scream. She would cry. Everything was horrible, and it was really, I'm sure that that's why I don't find it in myself. I don't find that rage because she expressed it for everyone, for the whole family.
Hmm, understood. Are you able to feel, and if this is too personal, just say, but I'll ask the question. Are you able to feel and express anger now that you're an adult? Has that been possible?
Not, I don't believe I do. No, no,
Okay.
I don't.
It's
I don't,
okay. We're
yeah, I don't find that emotion within myself.
gotcha. Thank you for being honest about that. Priscilla, how about you? How about the rage?
So I don't think I have rage. I do, but I do become very, I do become very, and I want to say like my thermometer, my feelings thermometer can go off when it comes to somebody attacking my kids.
Mm-hmm.
That in those moments, that's where I find a level of rage that I become concerned. That I've been able now to say, like, oh no, that's too much, and identify like and understand the value that my children have in my life, in my mother instinct needing to want to respond in those spaces. But when it comes to the people that have caused me harm or have or choose to have their own idea about life, I don't feel nothing because I started seeing them from a place they themselves have unresolved issues. And all I could do is like, I don't know who hurt you, but you are not gonna, I'm not gonna allow that energy to take power over me. And so I don't give it no time.
So there's a really now what you both are saying is leading to another question for both of you. For me, as children, we did not have a choice, much of a choice at all. But as adults, Denise and Priscilla, when a person gets angry at you inappropriately, how do you feel? And what do you do in the moment? And Denise, I know you've had this where people just get angry. What do you do in the moment? How do you feel first, if you can say? And what do you
Uh,
do?
it's a little scary, but really it's mostly my sister who is expressing this emotion. And so, I mean, I want to stay away from it. I don't want, I want to spend less time with my sister because of that. I had one coworker get mad at me once, and I tried to process it with that person right away. I was like, oh my God, she's triggered, I triggered her. And so I wanted to try to process it with her, but she would not. She was unavailable for that. So she just went to another job, immediately got another job across the hall and never like looked at me again or talked to me again. So
Mm.
those are really like the two most recent experiences of somebody being angry with me. But
What about
most,
when you protest, sweetie? Have you experienced people
oh yeah,
who
some people drive by like today there was a guy that went like that to us, which is, or they shake their head no. But I just understand that that there are two sides to this story. Some people
Mhm.
don't think Black Lives Matter. Some people do. And I mean, I don't know how the people that believe that Black lives don't matter, they could even holler it out. This man today hollered out his window, "You're racist. All lives matter." And I was like, thank you for saying. But I don't accept it as that I deserve his wrath.
Mhm.
I just understand that he understands different from me, and he can say what he wants, but it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't, because right now, then the next woman that drives by, beep, 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 waving, yeah, right on. So it's 50-50 out there, really.
I hear you. And what you're talking about, I mean, I'd protest too, and I've gotten all of these responses. It's safe though, because it's safer because people are driving by.
Right, they're in
What,
their
what
car.
is scary is when someone stops the car and gets out. So my question is, if somebody were angry at you, I mean, I think you've already described it with your person on your team at work. If somebody right there is like getting in a rage, which means to a trauma survivor, that person's getting out of control. What happens? You went to, let's try to work this out. And I want to ask Priscilla too, and I'll share how I deal with that. But Priscilla, as you're listening about rage and responding to rage, both as children and as adults, what is your sense of what's important about this?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your?
Well, go ahead and just talk about whatever's going on inside of you as you've been listening.
So I remember I kind of still stuck on the question you asked Denise, and I wanted to say it all depends for me, the way I'm gonna respond in it's gonna be depending of what's happening in the moment and the level of power that may bring to me. For instance, if I am in a protest and somebody say things, I'm gonna already be mentally prepared for that.
Right.
But if I'm like, and I'm protecting as a person who knows I go through anxiety, and a person who knows that at one point could have been seen as a person who projects. So I'm an advocate. So as an advocate, I advocate strong. And sometimes as a mother and a person who has experienced things, it may feel that I'm advocating a little bit too passionate, what they call it. So I've learned how to push back and reflect. So depending of where I'm at and what I'm doing, I give myself permission. But if it's a situation, I've been also, to make it fair, I've been also in situations where I black out. And in the moment of blacking, and it's been because it's been triggered by my children. They
Can you
find.
talk a little bit more about that? What happens when you black out? Do you literally faint?
Yeah, no, I black out to the point that I'm now an aggressor.
Ah,
Kids are being they being abused, or they being I black out. I don't think about the situation that I put myself in, and I respond because I need to protect my kids. That's all
Your
I have.
protector, right? Your
Yes.
protector self comes.
Yes, and I found myself, and gratefully now it's a bit different, because now I have enough time to process, or I have, like, I drink water, but there was a long time that it seems, and I feel like the devil will utilize my children to put me there, to take me away from what I was trying to pursue. Last incident that I had is my daughter had a boyfriend who he was trying to run her over with the car, and somebody called me, because I'm known in Boston. They called me, they're like, Priscilla, this is happening in this place. And I just get in my car and I smashed his car with my car, and I'm getting out the car to fight him. And I'm like, when I saw the police, I'm like, I'm so the only thing that will help me come back to center, it was either blood or the police. And
did the police help you in that situation? What happened when you realized? Talk about getting out of that state, because that's a state that trauma survivors can get into. It's like, oh,
yes. So my thing has been, the police has been my to go. So I've called the police for safety, and I'm saying,
Mhm.
I'm headed this way. My daughter's on this situation. If I get there before you guys do, I'm gonna respond. So when the police got there after the accident, which my car was totaled, both the police and the person and that I was being arrested, I identify myself. And as I'm identifying myself, I'm realizing, like, Priscilla, you're putting yourself in a very hot situation here. But then I learned that you have the power to defend yourself. and this was a situation where my daughter life was in threat. So the insurance did not saw me at fault. The police did not saw me at fault because there was evidence as well. But yes, that's when I learned that I needed to then have very serious conversations with my daughter and say how much I have worked and how much I try to protect myself. And that is just not fair that they making decisions that can put me in these situations. And it has taken in I had to have a very big family conversation and explain to my husband what had happened to me and how concerning this could have been, because I needed him to know me in that space. And it was very important for him to know that rage does exist, that just because I am a trauma therapist, just because I help people heal, it doesn't mean that it can't happen to me. And I needed him to know the signs. I needed him to be aware and to be my middleman is if that was to happen. But gratefully, I've been able to now create boundaries and protect myself.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
That rage, you see, and that's what Tony A is saying, is that we cannot escape that rage. It's deep down in there someplace. And I have felt that rage. And what I've worked on over the years, and part of this is 3 years of law school, I worked on channeling the rage so that I could feel it in my body. And I can feel this pressure coming up through my chest. And I want to hurt somebody. I want to hurt somebody. I want to stop them from hurting other people or myself. I want to stop them from shaming somebody else. So I feel this pressure coming up in my body. And what I have taught myself to do, probably I want to step back and say, I was never a big kid. So I have friends that punched people out. I wasn't skilled at that, but I did as an elementary school kid. I had a big kid who was picking on me. Come on over here. He was 5 years older than me. He's picking on me, and I'd had it. Come on over. I'd had it, and I went over, and I started. He's punching me. I'm punching at him. He punches me. I fall down on his steel-toed shoe and break my wrist. And my response as a trauma survivor is, I'm not going to give him any sense of satisfaction that he's won this fight. I'm just saying, stop, I'm going home. I walked down the dirt road, it was macadam at that point. I walked down the road and I very logically, because I learned how to protect myself, said to my parents, I think my wrist is broken. Can you please take me to the doctor? Now that is a story of two things. One, me allowing myself to feel the rage and express it through my body. And yet, what did I learn? Most of the people who are predators and transgressors in my life have been bigger and stronger. Male, occasionally female, but mostly male. And so what I started learning as a child is, how could I channel that rage into a way in which I could be strong? And my choice to go to law school was all about learning the language of power and becoming more powerful. And I was, in my 20s, one of my 4 jobs was being a runway model. And I would get whistled at and looked at, and, men felt they could do all this stuff. And I got so tired. And I was an educator as well. I got tired of not being taken seriously. I said, what can I do to have power so that I don't have to put up with this stuff? Because it felt so shaming. So I decided I went to law school. And trust me, once I was introduced as Attorney Bruno, I watched people get scared. And that was one of the things I wanted to accomplish. However, as the first woman in many situations, I discovered once I was there, and they got used to my being an attorney, it didn't matter to them because I was just another woman. So they could, that's where I had those experiences where I would say an idea in front of a board of all men and people would go, And then George, 5 minutes later, would say the same thing. And people would, as I said, and people would say, oh, that's great. That's awesome. George, what a great idea. So my rage again came up at not being seen, not being heard. And then I learned to change my voice. It's almost like code speaking. People of color have learned how to code speak, how to speak in the language of the dominant group. So I learned how to code speak, and I can channel my voice in such a way that the authority is coming through my voice, and you do not want to mess with me. Does that make sense to people? The whole thing about male-female stuff and power and rage and violence, and also using this, what we've got as authority. What authority do we, as none of us is a big woman? What have we got? What's the authority?
I
Or any
avoid,
other response? You avoid. That's one way to do it. Yeah,
Right.
talk about that.
I don't like to go around men. Like I went in a bar recently and all the men's heads turned and looked at me and I tried to stay, but then I turned around and walked out because I don't want that. I don't want that. So I left.
I learned how to so I've learned how to identify my environment and how to speak about it and the importance of environment. Even before I studied trauma, I believed that environment was very powerful in the way we connect with people and the way we grow. And I learned also that, and honestly, I've seen people who have been in less time than me in Massachusetts, and I speak better English than they do. And that was because I started being around people that will help in me saying, I'm a learning process. I've been through this. I also started owning my story and becoming authentic and saying, this is what I'm going through. This is me. And honestly, this is why early childhood for me is so important. And I learned, like Holly said, I shifted my rage. So now when to where it's no more rage, where I'm planting healing seeds of hope, where I'm saying, I get it, but it's not you, it's what they did to you. It's in helping them understand their love language in a different way for the family. But yeah.
Help us with this, Priscilla. If you feel rage coming up because you're dealing with someone, maybe a narcissist, who just is not hearing you at all, and you know you can't affect the person, but the person is affecting other people negatively, what do you do with that mind? How do you use your strong voice that has come out of accepting your own story? What do you do in those cases?
It depends on the type of people this person has control on. And if the people it's aware of what's happening, I help them by helping them identify the resources and tools that is out there. For instance, women who are going through domestic violence, I recommend domestic violence to women who, or people, I get this a lot, parents who are separating and they're blaming each other of their child behaviors in front of their kids. So how do we talk about that, and how can I use my voice in these spaces? And it creates a lot of rage because I'm like, you guys are doing to this little kid with what happened to me. Like, she's confused, poor thing. Like, all these things go through me. So what I do is I educate them. And if they don't want to participate, or they don't want to learn, or they don't want to be educated, then I remove myself, because I started also accepting that I'm not going to change the world. These are things that has happened from decades, from like 1868, before, like a lot of times, like through slavery. Like, there's a lot of things that has been very historical, and there's people that wants a change and want to make a difference, and there's people that unfortunately are already fixated.
I hear you. Denise, you have a response to that? Or are you still reflecting?
Yeah, I'm still reflecting.
Well, I have something to say, and it was empowering to me physically. When I was in law school, and very few women, I had two women roommates. I've thought about them a lot because one of them died, and I felt great sadness. the three of us decided, this was during something called Take Back the Night. Has anyone heard of Take Back the Night?
Look at my shirt.
I love it, girl.
The Take
What
Back
a
the Night.
coincidence.
There are no coincidences in this group, girl. But so what
Wow.
does that mean, sweetie?
That is when women, became, when they had the consciousness raising groups and they became conscious that, this patriarchal power over women, and women were afraid to go out at night because men would pursue them, hurt them, rape them. And so,
Stalk them. Mhm.
right. So Take Back the Night is an organization, a nationwide organization where women organize. And like in Toledo, we have a silent witness program, which they are wood cutouts of women who were injured, killed in domestic violence. And then you walk up and you read their story and become aware. So that's what our Take Back the Night means.
So that's powerful. And it was a movement, Priscilla, and it must have been around in like 1973, 74, 5 when I was in law school, because my roommates and I decided, because we were outdoor people, all of us were out there wanting to like walk down the street at night, So we decided to take a self-defense course. Unfortunately, the local university offered one. So the three of us were the only people in this self-defense course. And we learned a lot of stuff. And I'll tell you, it worked. Here's what I want to say. Thanks. Here's what I want to say that is really powerful in the moment. I learned when someone was coming toward me to hurt me. Now, my father did this all the time, and all I could do was cower because I couldn't run. He would catch me. So I physically overcame that conditioning by practicing again and again with my roommates. If someone came after me, what would I do? And here's one thing I learned I never knew before. Many men learn it in their sports. Maybe today women learn it, but I never learned it in my sports, and I was athletic. When someone's coming to take a swing at me, I can, and if they get me off balance, that doesn't mean I'm going to get hurt. I can roll and take my energies with me so that instead of landing kersplat and getting hurt, as I did by the guy who broke my wrist, instead, I can take my energy and keep it rolling. So I learned a forward roll. And when did this come up? Rebecca, my roommate, and I were the only two young women playing soccer with all these guys from law school, and many of them were big. I was like 103 pounds and 5'5". This guy came at me, we both went for the ball at the same time, and he literally knocked me over. And I remember feeling confident and safe in that moment that he smashed into me. I could feel my body rising up, and I was slow motion, and that's something that happens with the brain when we're going through something tough. I could feel my body rising up, and I said, "You can do this, sweetheart. You just can do this." When I landed, I knew to roll my energy forward. And before I knew it, the whole playing field was around me. "Are you okay?" I had this big ass-eating grin across my face.
Heck yeah, I'm okay.
Good, man. So that is an example of how trauma survivors can we've all given examples of how trauma survivors can take the agonies, the pains, the abuse, the hurts that were given to us and channel that into some kind of recovery. And I want to invite the people that are listening. What have you been able to do where you've taken your broken heart and you've turned it into power? And we only have about a minute left. So I'm going to ask, that's my message to people, is that it's possible to transform that threat translate trauma's harsh legacy into healing. Would either one of you like to wrap up this program for our listeners?
Go ahead,
Both
Priscilla.
of you, yeah. Oops,
You're
we lost you.
muted.
Thank you. I'll say one thing and then Denise will close us. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, so I just going to encourage our viewers and our listeners to take those broken pieces and sew them with resilience and know that you have the power to heal. And like Holly says, we reframe it. We reframe that pain and we utilize to empower ourselves and heal. Thank you so much. And I'll see you guys back on Monday at 3.
Thank you, sweetheart. Gotta go. Janice, yeah, how would you wrap?
I would say, yes, I'm back on Facebook if anyone wants to chat, or if you have, a need to connect with someone, I am willing to chat with you on Facebook, Denise Emerald Kiki.
Wonderful. You can get in touch with any of us, right? Just contact us and we will be in touch. We will respond. And next week, 3 o'clock East Coast, wherever you are, we'll see you. And thank you, guys. Thank you, fellow travelers. Gracias. Grazie.
Hasta el
Adieu.
lunes.
Adieu.
Hasta lunes.
Adieu. See. Thank you so much, my friends. Let me turn this off. Thanks, Priscilla.
Thank you. Oh,
I'm
Denise.
sure you want to stop recording. She took off too. So here.